Let us discuss about necrosis. The morphological appearance of necrosis as well as necroptosis. It is nothing but the result of denaturation of intracellular proteins. You have intracellular proteins, but there will be denaturation of those intracellular proteins and enzymatic digestion and you have lethally injured cell. So if there occurs enzymatic digestion of the lethally injured cell, and if there occurs denaturation of intracellular proteins, then that is called a morphological appearance of necrosis, and not only the morphological appearance but also necroptosis. Okay, and in this process necrotic cells, they are actually unable to maintain their membrane integrity. So since they are unable to maintain the membrane integrity, their contents will be often it is leaking out. Okay, some process it will be there that may elicit. So since it is leaking out all those contents, it will elicit inflammation in the surrounding tissue also. So inflammation in the surrounding tissue occurs because of the leakage, and that is due to the enzymatic digestion of the lethally injured cell and the denaturation of intracellular proteins. So we have those enzyme that which is digesting the lethally injured cell actually it is derived from those cells, or it is derived from the lysosomes of the dying cells. Okay, and not only the lysosomes of the dying cells, and from the lysosomes of leukocytes we have leukocytes. From the lysosomes of leukocytes, that are called in as part of inflammatory reaction. Actually the part of inflammatory reaction, not only the necrotic cell but also the dying cells and leukocytes. So the lysosomes of the dying cells and lysosomes of necrocytes that play a role in the part of the inflammatory reaction. Because of this only that enzymatic digestion occurs. Okay, so since there is loss of plasma membrane integrity, since there is loss of plasma membrane integrity, cardiac specific enzymes and certain proteins, it will also release from the necrotic muscle. Okay, so next to 2 hours after myocardial cell necrosis, we have to deduct it. Okay, so this is what necrosis. Next we have to understand the morphology of the necrosis. It is nothing but there will be increased eosinophilia. Why? Because all those contents leaked out of the cell, so which will be attributing to the increased eosinophilic content. Okay, so it is due to loss of cytoplasmic RNA. We have denatured cytoplasmic proteins. In definition we have seen that because of the denaturation of cytoplasmic proteins, there will be increased eosinophilia. So loss of cytoplasmic RNA and denaturation of cytoplasmic proteins contribute to increased eosinophilia. Next there will be more glassy homogeneous appearance. Why? Because necrotic cell in necrotic cell we have loss of glycogen particles also. Increased eosinophilia, it is due to loss of cytoplasmic RNA, not only due to that denatured cytoplasmic proteins also, and not only due to that but also due to the more glassy but also due to the loss of glycogen particles. Loss of glycogen particles mainly attribute to the more glassy homogeneous appearance. Okay, next we should see about there will be myelin figures. You write, we have to know that that is enough regarding the eosinophilia. We need to see about nucleus changes. Actually it is due to non-specific breakdown of DNA. We have DNA and already cytoplasmic RNA it is lost, and due to that there is increased eosinophilia. So now what is the result of the non-specific breakdown of DNA? Actually if basophilic content of the chromatin, if it is fading, then we will say it is karyolysis. Okay, karyolysis. Actually there are 3 steps in that. We have pycnosis, we have karyorrhexis, we have karyolysis. Pycnosis is nothing but nucleus, it will be shrunken and it appears dark blue. Okay, it is condensed. Nucleus, it will be shrunken. Okay, nucleus shrunken, it appears dark blue. That is nothing but increased eosinophilia. Okay, this is called pycnosis. Then we also have karyorrhexis. Karyorrhexis is nothing but fragmentation of the nuclei. We also have karyolysis. It is nothing but completely the nucleus fade away. I have told you already. So basophilia of the chromatin, it will be completely fading away. Next let us see about the types of necrosis. Okay, coagulative necrosis is nothing but Actually it is caused due to ischemia, okay, loss of blood supply to the organ, okay, loss of blood supply, or there will be because of loss of blood supply there will be no oxygen, there will be no ATP, protein denaturation happens, no oxygen, no ATP, protein denaturation, loss of blood supply, and it is secondary to ischemia. Mechanism is nothing but injury, this injury because of loss of blood supply, because of ischemia, it will be denaturing the structural proteins, because proteins need oxygen and ATP for their survival. If it is not available, then there will be denaturation of proteins, okay, there will be denaturation of proteins, and not only proteins but also enzymes. Later we also have recruited leukocytes. Those recruited leukocytes, it will be digesting the dead cells. Dead cells are there, so those dead cells, it has to be digested. So digesting those dead cells, it needs something. So that something is nothing but recruited leukocytes, okay. First, denaturation of structural proteins, as there is no O2, as there is no ATP, as everything is lost. Next, there will be recruitment of the there will be digestion of the dead cells by later recruited leukocytes, okay. Next, we also have let's see about morphology. Morphology is nothing but tissue architecture. It will be always preserved, okay. Film texture, and if tissue architecture is preserved, then there will be film structure, and that is nothing but eosinophilic. Anucleate cells are nothing but karyolysis. If the nucleus fades away, if it is not there, that is anucleate cells. So in case of coagulative necrosis, tissue architecture it will be preserved. Not only tissue architecture it is preserving, but also there will be film structure. Not only film structure, but also anucleate cells, which means karyolysis, and eosinophilic due to loss of cytoplasmic RNA, and not only loss of denaturation of cytoplasmic proteins also, okay. Eosinophilic, anucleate cells, tissue architecture preserved, film texture. Next, let's see about sites in which where this coagulative necrosis occurs. Typically, this coagulative necrosis, it will be occurring in solid organs. Solid organs nothing but except brain, okay. Brain is also a solid organ, but it will not occur in the brain, it will occur in all other solid organs, okay. Infects in the brain. So infects in solid organs, for example, it may be a myocardial infarction. So if there occurs, so suppose if there is a myocardial, if there occurs infection in heart or something, like we'll say it is what, coagulative necrosis. In fact, it's nothing but local area of necrosis, okay. So in coagulative necrosis, we have tried cause, mechanism, morphology, sites, cause, secondary to ischemia, mechanism, injury, which is denaturing the structural proteins and enzymes. Morphology is nothing but in the tissue architecture is preserved. Film texture, eosinophilic, anucleate cells, which will be preserving ATP. Sites is nothing but typically it is seen in infects, especially in case of solid organs, but not brain, okay. Infact means local area of necrosis. Next, let us see about liquefactive necrosis, okay. Because of the bacterial or fungal infections, we have bacteria and fungi. Because of those infections, this liquefactive necrosis occurs. What is the mechanism? Inflammatory cells, it will be digesting, okay. Inflammatory cells digest liquefied tissues are present. Inflammatory cells, those cells which are which have undergone inflammation, it will be digesting the tissues. So if it is digesting the tissues, then tissues get liquefied, so which causes pus, or it may lead to abscess also. Dead cells completely digested, those dead cells. So dead cells are recruited leukocytes digest dead cells in case of coagulative necrosis, but in case of liquefactive necrosis, dead cells are completely digested. So mechanism is nothing but inflammatory cells, it will be digesting, it will be liquefying the tissue, pus or abscess occurs, dead cells completely digested. What is the morphology in liquefactive necrosis, where the focal bacterial or fungal infections occur? Tissue, it will be transformed into viscous liquid. Where it occurs, liquefactive necrosis, actually site where it occurs it occurs in CNS, central nervous system. So ischemic necrosis, it will be occurring in central nervous system. So what is the cause? Focal bacterial fungal infection. What is the mechanism? Inflammatory cells digesting the tissue, it will liquefy it, pus or abscess happens. Dead cells are completely digested. Morphology, tissue, it will be transformed into viscous liquid. Sides is nothing but there occurs ischemic necrosis, where there will be loss of blood supply in central nervous system. And we also have gangrenous necrosis. Gangrenous necrosis is nothing but coagulative gangrenous. Okay, coagulative, actually gangrenous, it is a type of coagulative necrosis only. Okay, dry gangrene, which means there will be loss of blood supply in case of extremities. You have leg, you have hand, so in case of extremities there will be loss of blood supply. If there occurs a gangrene because of the if there occurs a loss of blood supply because of the loss of because of the loss of blood supply, if there occurs any necrosis in the extremities, we will be saying it as dry gangrene. Okay, next, if blockage of venous, if we have venous drainage, if there occurs any blockage of venous drainage, it causes wet gangrene. Loss of blood supply in extremities, it causes dry gangrene. Blockage of venous drainage in bowel, if it happens, then it is called wet gangrene. It is gangrenous necrosis. It is a type of coagulative. Don't forget that. What is the cause of the gangrenous necrosis? Arterial or venous occlusion. What is the mechanism? Coagulative necrosis, it is due to compromised perfusion. You have coagulative necrosis, we have compromised perfusion. So because of the compromised perfusion, coagulative necrosis occurs. It always occurs in multiple tissue planes, not in single tissue plane, multiple tissue plane. Next, the second mechanism is superimposed bacterial infection. What is a superimposed bacterial infection? Bacteria comes and infect which is superimposed. It is called wet gangrene. Coagulative necrosis due to compromised perfusion. Superimposed bacterial infection, it is nothing but wet gangrene. Okay, next, how the organ looks like. Organ, it is dry, shrunken and black. Organ dry, shrunken, black in case of dry gangrene. So soft, swollen and putrid in case of wet gangrene. Dry, shrunken and black in case of dry gangrene. Soft, swollen and putrid in case of wet gangrene. Sides, actually it will be occurring in lower extremity. In diabetic patient, lower extremity dry gangrene occurs. Bowel, wet gangrene occurs. Okay, gangrenous necrosis, coagulative necrosis. It is a type of coagulous. Digangrene, it occurs due to loss of blood supply in extremities. Blockage of venous drainage happens in bowel. And we say it as wet gangrene, and it is due to arterial or venous occlusion. Mechanism, what is the mechanism? It is due to compromised perfusion. It occurs in multiple tissue planes. Superimposed bacterial infection, it occurs in wet gangrene. Organ, it is dry, shrunken and black, and soft, swollen and putrid in case of wet gangrene. Okay, and dry, shrunken, black is case of dry gangrene. Soft, swollen and putrid in case of wet gangrene. Typically it is seen in lower extremities. In diabetes, it occurs. Bowel is nothing but it occurs in wet gangrene. Now let's move to caseous necrosis. Caseous necrosis, okay, it is often associated with tuberculosis. So in cause, we have to write it as associated with tuberculosis. Okay, mechanism, what is the mechanism of caseous necrosis? Because of the aberrant immune response, caseous necrosis occurs. We have immune response. If that immune response is aberrant, then it is caseous necrosis. Okay, so the mechanism is aberrant immune response. What is a morphology? Friable, yellow, white, necrotic tissue, caseous cheese-like. Okay, friable, yellow, white, necrotic tissue, caseous cheese-like, amorphous granular debris. There occurs amorphous granular debris. There will be distinctive inflammatory border. No worries, there will be distinctive inflammatory border in case of caseous necrosis. What is the morphology? There will be friable, yellow, white, necrotic tissue, caseous white-like. There will be amorphous granular debris. Amorphous granular debris, and there will be distinct inflammatory border. You have to remember, there will be amorphous granular debris, caseous cheese-like, friable, yellow, white, distinct inflammatory border. Sites where it occurs: tuberculosis lymph node, tuberculosis lung. TB lymph node, TB lung. Caseous necrosis, what you should write? Cause, it is associated with tuberculosis. Mechanism, there will be aberrant immune response. Morphology, friable, yellow, white, necrotic tissue. Caseous, it will be cheese-like. Then amorphous granular debris occurs. Not only amorphous granular debris, not only KG, like there will be distinctive inflammatory border sites, TB lymph node, TB lung. TB lymph node, TB lung. Okay, what is fat necrosis? It is usually secondary to the release of pancreatic lipids. So due to the release of pancreatic lipids, fat necrosis occurs, and also due to trauma. Okay, what is the mechanism? Chalky white areas, there occurs fat saponification, which means chalk calcium, it will be combining with the fat to form fat saponification. Sites it occurs in pancreas and breast. Okay, and I forgot to tell you one thing. In caseous necrosis, granuloma occurs. Okay, in fat necrosis, usually since it is secondary to release of pancreatic lipids, mechanism chalky white areas, fat saponification, sites pancreas and breast. Okay, at last we need to know about fibrinoid necrosis. Fibrinoid necrosis, the cause is immune mediated vascular damage. We have vascular damage. If that vascular damage occurs by immune mediation, then we will be saying it as immune mediated vascular damage, and which is the cause of fibrinoid necrosis. What is the mechanism? Immune complexes are something called serum protein. Immune complexes nothing but serum protein. It will deposit in the arterial wall. We have arterial wall, that immune complexes or serum protein, it will be depositing in the arterial walls, vascular damage. Okay, so protein is responsible for the deposition here. In case of fibrinoid necrosis, it causes vascular damage, don't forget that. And this is an immune mediated vascular damage. Morphology, it is brightly eosinophilic amorphous. Okay, it will be bright, it will be eosinophilic amorphous, and that is called fibrinoid. What is fibrinoid? Brightly eosinophilic amorphous. Fibrinoid necrosis usually it occurs in blood vessel. Okay, next that is about necrosis. Totally there are coagulative necrosis, liquefactive necrosis, gangrenous necrosis, caseous necrosis, fat and fibrinoid.